Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping into a beer from Gigantic Beer Company. We've done a lot of their beers, and this is another one that's rather akin to many that we've done in the past. And we are jumping over to another, and this is the last that I had been saving of the massive yearly release of their Barleywine. And these are barrel-aged variants that I got in the last batch. And I was saving this one for when I was really feeling like coming back around to Gigantic again. And this is a 2021 release. They call this one Islay Scotch, aged massive 2021. 14.3% ABV on this, though it is worth noting it is not just Islay Scotch. They used a mixture of 3 barrels: Highland Scotch, Islay Scotch, and Añejo Mezcal barrels. So yeah, I'm expecting this to be one of the more interesting ones of the bunch. Gigantic is, of course, based in Portland, Oregon. So label art, it is literally just like all of the others. It's got this kind of, goat screaming on the label, and this one, clearly labeled Islay Scotch. So yeah, that's what they call it, though it is a blend of 3 different barrels. So we're going to take the little sticker off here. Not that the bottle opener wouldn't get it ripped anyway, but we'll set that aside. Get this cracked, and as per usual, we will use our nice stout glass, which works great for barley wines. So we're just going to get that poured right in. Oh yeah, that is looking the classic barley wine color, that deep, rich caramelly color, and very active in terms of carbonation. I'm going to try to get a sniff in just a second here. Yeah, formed a nice head, very active in terms of carbonation. That classic color. I can already get big notes off of this. I can definitely smell the barrels, and I can smell the underlying barley wine itself. So before this head completely collapses, which may take a little longer than usual, it's actually holding okay. We're going to get right up over this for a sniff, see what we get. Oh yeah. So you can definitely smell the barrel. The Scotch in particular is really coming off. The Mezcal is a little bit on the nose, but predominantly out of the barrel side, it's coming from the Scotch, which, I mean, to be fair, it's a ratio of 2 to 1 for various Scotches versus the Mezcal. But the other thing on the nose, and this is exactly what I remember from all of these Gigantic, massive entrants that I've tried over the years, is very classic aroma profile you would expect from a barley wine. There's a ton of toffee, there's a ton of caramel, there's figs, there's apricots, there's plums. It's really all in there. Exactly what I would expect to get on the nose, I'm getting out of it. It's very pungent. It is a big barley wine, so I expect nothing less. So the head has more or less settled out of the way. It's still got a nice bit of cling though, and I can see it still creating some and clinging to the sides as well as a little pad on top. You don't often get that in a barley wine, so in general, for the head and retention, this one did a very good job. But we're going to jump right in for our first sip and see what this one's about. Very good, very big beer. I could tell you, the fact that they decide to call this Islay, absolutely, I think that's what I would go with, because it is indeed the best descriptor. It is a blend of 3 barrels, and yes, you can taste the other barrels in there as well. But Islay has a very distinct flavor profile due to the heavily peated malts that they use in its production in the Islay region of Scotland. It is extremely smoky. That is the hallmark and telltale of an Islay Scotch. That's what separates it, as one of the biggest distinctions between the other regions. They all have their own little unique twist, but Islay is definitely known for heavily smoked peat laden malts in their Scotch, and it's very present. So this makes for a very interesting and unique flavor profile on this barley wine. One that is almost a combination between a barley wine and a rauch beer, as you might expect, given the smoked peat, for the malts. Malt production, similar process for making rauch beer. It's basically the exact same. You're going to smoke some malt and then put it into the drink, and it does impart a very distinct smokiness to the finished product. Very prevalent on this beer. So in terms of body and mouthfeel, it's a big 14.3% ABV beer. It has weight, it has resistance. On this one, it's definitely just kind of a standard resistance. There's no real creaminess or foaminess, nothing like that at all on the mouthfeel. The weight's nice and full. It feels appropriate for the beer style and certainly for the ABV range. So yeah, it's checking off all the boxes. Really, this one, it's the flavor profile. That's what makes this the most interesting. And you know, I've had a few of these beers that some I really, really liked more than others, but this one I think is another one of the more special ones. In my humble opinion, though, to be fair, I am a massive Islay Scotch fan. So, we're going to jump back in, let everything re-intensify. We're going to pick apart exactly where everything pops in and out. Then we're going to talk about the balance and the finish, but on first sip, this is a very, very well done barley wine. So, take two. Nice, robust, big presence. First thing you get up front is kind of a mix of the classic barley wine flavors. You get figs, apricots, plums, tons of caramel, tons of toffee, kind of caramelized brown sugar notes floating in there, almost like the sugar on top of a creme brulee. Very, very nice. And it's about the 3 to 5 second mark that the barrel kind of qualities start to open up to the top. Interestingly, the Isaly Scotch barrel, which is very, very easy to pick out because of that smoky undertone, does not override the other standard, classic, normal barley wine flavors that are coming out of this flavor profile. It also doesn't override the other barrels. So, look, the distinction between picking up notes of Islay Scotch versus Highland, Islay obviously is smoky, but you can clearly tell it's Scotch. Highland Scotches tend to be a bit sweeter, almost honey-like. I'm not really picking, oh yeah, that's clearly Highland. It tastes of Scotch. Okay, so I'm not gonna go that far down that rabbit hole, but it clearly, distinctly, you can taste the Scotch. And behind that, once you start to get the first kind of flavors of Scotch to enter and join the flavor parade, the Mezcal, the Añejo Mezcal barrel also pops in as well. And that is a flavor that can be also extremely bold and pungent, just as Islay Scotch can. But I gotta say, however long they left this in the respective barrels, the balance on how it comes out in the flavor profile is absolutely beautiful. There's nothing overriding any other flavor in here, and I did not expect that once I read that, yes, it's not just Islay Scotch. We use these two other barrels as well. So this, to me, screams of an extremely impressive, extremely well-balanced barley wine. It starts with the classic barley wine aromas. It starts with the classic barley wine flavors. Tons of layers of complexity, they're weaving in and out, and then the barrels come in. That happens both in the aroma profile as well as the flavor profile, and that is extremely challenging to do when you're talking a beer style as complex as barley wine, that they're using these big, bold barrels, and everything has its own voice. Nothing's really vying for attention. It's just well balanced, guys. I gotta say, of all of these to date, this is hands down my favorite, personally one. Subjectively, this is my favorite one of these releases I've had to date. Definitely going to keep my eyes out for some 2023 releases, and with any luck, I'll be able to secure a few bottles. But this is a very, very good beer. In terms of the finish, it's quite long. This is a 14.3% ABV beer, triple barrel aged, big, bold, in your face. The finish is very long. It's wet, it's round, all the way to the end. Well in excess of a minute, pushing 2 minutes on each sip. It really does linger on the back of the palate. On this one, what I'm left with is classic underpinning of barley wine and residual vestiges of specifically the Islay Scotch barrel. That smoky nature of it does really linger, and it does linger on the back of this beer. So the Mezcal barrel and the Highland Scotch kind of aspect of it does dissipate a little bit quicker. So on the back, you're left with this rich kind of, almost like the figgy toffee pudding type deal that you often find in barley wines at the end. Tons of caramel and toffee, and then that underlying smoked peatiness from the Islay Scotch barrel. It's absolutely fantastic, guys. This is a really, really good one. I'm going to take my time, sip on this, go with my scores. When we come back, we will get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was Gigantic Brewing Company's massive, a 2021 release of the Islay Scotch barrel-aged variant of their barley wine. They do a ton of different releases every year, tons of different barrels. This was the one they called Islay Scotch 2021 release. This was 14.3% ABV, and Gigantic is based in Portland, Oregon. So I've had a lot of these beers over the years. This was one I was saving because I expected to personally enjoy it the best, and indeed I did. All of them that I've had have been very, very good, but this one was quite special, namely because I'm a big, big fan of Islay Scotch. But regardless, this beer kind of had it all for me. It was the classic color. It had wonderful aroma and nuance in the aroma, including all of the classic underlying elements you would expect to find in a barley wine, as well as the barrels. And it was very balanced in the aroma, and the same thing happened when you got into the flavor profile. Just tons and tons of nuance and layers of flavors moving in and out, but everything was balanced in perfect harmony. I don't know how they did it with barrels this big, but whatever their secret is to getting this beer put together, they absolutely nailed it. Wonderful, wonderful beer. So going through the scores, there's only one category on this one that did not get a perfect score, and that was the body. And yeah, the body was above average, but I did expect it to have just a bit more heft, given the 14.3% ABV. Body gets a 7. Above average. It is what it is. It was still perfectly appropriate. And that does, of course, leave a perfect 10 out of 10 in the 9 remaining categories. That's aroma, taste, mouthfeel, finish, head and retention, appearance, balance, feeling/intangible, my subjective thoughts category, and finally, example of style. So the total score on Gigantic Brewing Company's massive 2021 release of the Islay Scotch barrel-aged variant of their barley wine is a 97 out of 100. Guys, this was a fantastic beer. If you, as I, are a big, big fan of Islay Scotch and you also like barley wines, this is one not to be missed. If maybe you've never had Islay Scotch, maybe you're just getting into kind of more smoked malt type drinks, this is one I would put on my radar. Of course, this was a 2021. This high ABV, you could age this beer for years, certainly, but my guess is that they're going to have, you know, a relatively recent release of this, probably 2022. I think it's a fall release beer, if memory serves correctly. So just check around, see what you can find. I got mine from Tavour, though, of course, you could check a local bottle shop, a Total Wine, check Craft Shack if you haven't checked it out. Either way, fantastic beer. Gigantic always does a great job with their massive lines. This one was no exception. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications, hit the bell icon. It is right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.